Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. In a universe where humanity is seen as the underdog, could our resilience and ingenuity turn the tide against a mighty galactic empire? Let's get into the story. The human representative shuffled into the throne room, his head bowed. Polished chrome floor stretched towards the distant dais where the Emperor reclined, a hulking insectoid creature adorned with iridescent plates of chitin. Even the air seemed thick with disdain, a tangible reminder of humanity's precarious place in the grand hierarchy of the Galactic Empire.
"You come bearing us tribute?"
The Emperor's voice buzzed, translated mechanically through the representative's implant. "Yes, exalted one." The human swallowed the bitter taste of those words. Crates piled beneath the room's vaulted ceiling held not riches or exotic technology, but the raw materials that fueled the Empire's war fleets. Earth was not a partner, but a mine to be exploited. But what the Empire didn't know, couldn't know, was that humanity hadn't spent the long centuries since their uplifting wallowing in despair. There were other mines scattered among the system's barren moons, other tributes paid. For decades, generations, humanity had played the part of the lowly, outmatched newcomers. Their true labor unfolded in the absolute secrecy of the orbital shipyards. There, Earth's finest scientists and engineers, fueled by memories of subjugation, poured their genius into creating the unthinkable. Every ounce of scavenged resource, every stolen bit of alien tech had been painstakingly bent to one purpose. Captain Alexander Hayes stood on the bridge of that purpose, a ship so vast it dwarfed any dreadnought in the Imperial fleet. The Invictus was Earth's ace in the hole, a dagger hidden up humanity's sleeve. Soon, it would be plunged into the heart of their oppressor. "Captain," his second-in-command whispered. "Imperial sensor sweep, standard pattern. They suspect nothing." Hayes smiled, a sliver of cold satisfaction in a face usually set in a mask of subservience. "Good. Let them keep looking at the hands while we draw the knife." The jump drive whined, the stars smearing across the bridge viewport. The Invictus materialized at the edge of the Arcturus system, a vital trade hub for the Empire. Hayes watched the massive Imperial station, a metallic leviathan teeming with activity. "Comms, hail them," he ordered. His voice held no hint of supplicant, only the steel of command. "Imperial Station Arcturus, this is United Earth Freighter Odysseus. A malfunction has forced us to divert, requesting emergency docking authorization." The comm officer, a bright young-eyed man barely out of the academy, looked up in surprise. The standard protocol called for groveling pleas and layers of bureaucracy. Hayes met his gaze squarely. The officer cleared his throat. "Aye, Captain," he said, a spark of defiance in his tone. The comm crackled with static, then the clipped voice of a station administrator.
"Odysseus, explain this deviation. Your cargo manifest."
The voice trailed off, replaced by a hiss of shock.
"What the seven hells is that?"
Hayes grinned. Their cover was thin. A freighter couldn't hide a ship the size of the Invictus, but the shock, the raw disbelief would buy them precious time. "Launch fighters!" he commanded, his voice echoing in the vastness of the bridge. Hangars disgorged sleek starfighters, their plasma engines flaring bright. "Captain!" the sensor officer shouted. "Massive energy surge from the station! I'm reading weapons spin-up!" "Too late," Hayes murmured. The Imperials had seen through the ruse, but not fast enough. "Target their defenses, but focus on crippling. We're not here for a slaughter." He turned to the ship's AI interface. "Invictus, is the jump drive charged?" A cool, almost amused female voice responded.
"Jump systems are ready, Captain. Destination?"
His gaze swept the distant blue marble of Earth, a symbol of both oppression and quiet determination. "Home," he said, and with a surge of acceleration, the Invictus tore itself away from Arcturus, leaving behind a crippled station and a galactic empire reeling from its first stinging blow. Word of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire through the vast channels of the Empire. The image of a human-made warship the size of a small moon shattered a sense of superiority built over centuries. The Emperor, first amused by the notion of resistance, now writhed in fury. Fleets scrambled, vast armadas meant for conquest now forced into defensive postures. The Imperial war machine, so long focused on outward, turned its gaze reluctantly back towards its core territories. Meanwhile, the Invictus was a ghost. Each strike followed the same pattern, a flash of light, a brief flurry of battle near a strategic Imperial target, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The ship was a scalpel, not a bludgeon, each raid precisely calculated to inflict maximum damage and disruption. On Earth, the mood was electric. After so long bending the knee, humanity's newfound boldness brought defiance simmering to the surface. But Hayes, back in the hidden shipyards, tempered celebration with caution. "They're adapting," he told his bridge crew, their faces illuminated by flickering holographic displays. "The next strike will be harder, bloodier." He was right. The ambush came near the Epsilon Eridani system, a key staging ground for the Empire's fleets. This time, the Imperials were waiting. Corvettes spitting missiles and starfighters weaving through the Invictus's flak screen. The mighty carrier shuddered, its shields shimmering under the onslaught. Hayes gritted his teeth. "Evasive maneuvers! Focus fire on those corvettes! Take out their eyes!" The Invictus was designed for overwhelming firepower, not agility. Each turn was ponderous, a lumbering giant trying to swat at flies. But the ship's designers had anticipated this. Buried deep within its hull were the labs where Earth's most brilliant minds had defied the limitations of known technology. "Experimental teleportation matrix is online," a voice crackled over the comms. "Activate!" Hayes barked. "Get us the hell out of their kill zone!" The Invictus shimmered and then reappeared half a system away. The enemy ambush now a distant flicker of explosions. A collective sigh of relief swept the bridge, quickly replaced by grim determination. The teleportation matrix was a trump card, but it was unstable, unpredictable, a testament to humanity's quiet desperation more than their technological prowess. News of the teleportation matrix reached the Emperor himself. Even amidst the rising tide of human rebellion, it was a development that defied all expectations. The insect monarch, once dismissive, now paced his gleaming throne room, his advisors a terrified chorus around him.
"These primates, they defy all logic!"
He screeched, his segmented limbs twitching with agitation.
"They were barely mastering fire when we brought them into the galactic fold." "Exalted One,"
a wizened admiral ventured.
Perhaps they hid their progress, feigned weakness, while their true potential grew."
The Emperor hissed, anger rising alongside a chilling sliver of fear.
"If so, then we have grievously underestimated them. Assemble the Grand Fleet. We will crush their homeworld, burn it to ash until not a single human remains. They will learn the true price of defiance."
Aboard the Invictus, the crew wasn't privy to the Emperor's plans, but the shift in the Empire's tactics was undeniable. Strikes that were once hit and run were now becoming protracted, desperate battles against vastly superior numbers. Hayes spent sleepless nights on the bridge, plotting courses, analyzing data, a knot of tension ever present in his gut. One such night, as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, a figure emerged from the bridge's shadows. Dr. Emilia Sato, the architect of the teleportation matrix. "Captain," her voice was soft, but her eyes burned with an intensity that eclipsed her frail frame. "I think it's time." Hayes frowned. "Time for what, Doctor?" She stepped closer, her small hand gripping a crystalline data shard. "The Matrix. It was never meant for ship-to-ship jumps. That was just a stepping stone. We forced the tech to do something it was never designed for." "And what was it designed for?" Hayes asked, a prickle of unease down his spine. "To move weapons. Powerful ones." A ghost of a smile twitched at her lips. "Think of it as delivering a mailed fist, right to the Emperor's doorstep." Hayes stared at the data shard, the hum of the Invictus surrounding him like a shroud. Sato's plan was outlandish, borderline suicidal, and yet it sang with the same quiet defiance that had built this gargantuan ship in the first place. "Payload?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Matter destabilizer," Sato said. "Theoretically, it should trigger a cascading reaction, ripping apart a sizable chunk of a planet's crust. The teleportation matrix gives us the precision." The silence that followed echoed louder than any explosion. Delivering a blow like that to the very heart of the Empire, it could end this war in one blinding flash and countless Imperial lives with it. "And Invictus?" Hayes asked, the fate of his ship, his crew hanging heavy in the air. "The ship, it might survive the jump." Sato's voice was barely above a whisper, fraught with a mix of scientific calculation and sorrow. "Or it might not. But it will buy us time, distract them, pull their fleets away from Earth." Hayes looked out the viewport. That blue jewel, their home, shone back at him, a silent testament to the billions of lives depending on his decision. He wasn't just a captain anymore. He was the bearer of humanity's desperate, improbable hope. "Prep the Matrix," he said, his voice steel hard, a captain's voice once again. "And call all hands to the bridge. They deserve to hear this face to face." As the crew assembled, their faces a mix of fear and determination, Hayes laid out the truth. No sugarcoating, no false promises. When he was done, the bridge was thick with a silence born of impossible choices. A young pilot, barely more than a girl, raised a shaky hand. "Captain," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "I joined Earth's defense to fight, not—" She trailed off, unable to say the words. Hayes stepped towards her, his weathered face etched with both understanding and necessity. "We all did, Ensign. And some fights can only be won by becoming the thing you most despise." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But make no mistake, this is our chance to end it, to secure a future where nobody has to make this choice ever again." The Invictus cut through space, its course set for the core of the Galactic Empire. The mood on the bridge was a strange mix, tension coiled tight, punctuated by bursts of dark humor, quiet confessions, and shared memories of lives left behind on Earth. Hayes, usually a pillar of stoicism, felt the unfamiliar touch of pre-battle jitters. Sato, however, moved through the ship with relentless energy, triple-checking calculations, muttering to herself in a stream of consciousness that belied her brilliance and perhaps a touch of madness. The Invictus materialized above the Imperial capital world. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as a swarm of fighters launched from the planet's defenses, rising like angry wasps towards a gargantuan intruder. "Focus fire on the defenses," Hayes ordered, his voice echoing in the vastness of the bridge. "Weapons, prep the payload. Sato, give me a status." "Teleportation matrix is at 80%, Captain. Almost there," she replied, her voice tight but steady. A corvette blazing with the arrogant symbols of the Empire pierced through the fighter screen, its lasers finding their mark. The Invictus shuddered, shields flaring. "Invictus, report!" "Structural damage on decks 8 through 12, came the damage control officer's strained voice. "Non-critical, but, Captain, they'll whittle us down if we don't act." Sato straightened, her eyes blazing. "Matrix is charged. Target coordinates locked. Payload armed." Hayes glanced at the main view screen, the capital gleaming below, a symbol of the Empire's power and its arrogance. "Do it," he said, the word a heavy weight in his mouth. A flicker, a subtle distortion of space around the ship, and then silence. The Invictus hung in the void, fighters wheeling around it in confusion. The planet unharmed. What happened?" Hayes muttered, his heart a frantic drumbeat in his chest. I don't know." Sato was a ghost of herself, staring at her terminals in disbelief. "The Matrix, it malfunctioned." A sickening wave of despair crashed over the bridge, but before it could consume them, the sensors went wild. "Massive energy spike directly below!" the officer shouted. The space around the Invictus warped, twisting out of shape. Then, like a bubble bursting, a chunk of the planet erupted into the void. Not an explosion, but something far stranger. Molten rock and shattered crust spiraled outward, a grotesque parody of a celestial birth. "By all the stars," Hayes whispered. The teleportation hadn't failed. It had worked exactly as designed, sending the planet itself tearing apart from within. The Imperial fighters scattered in a panic, all thoughts of attack forgotten as their gleaming capital world began to disintegrate before their eyes. Across the Empire, the news spread, a wave of terror and awe washing over the systems. The very foundation of their power had crumbled, and the architect of its doom was not an ancient cosmic force, but a species they had deemed inferior. The war, however, was not yet won. The Empire, vast and furious, lashed out. Earth became the focus of their desperate rage. Fleets converging on the small blue world, the Invictus fought valiantly, buying time as Earth's orbital defenses scrambled, their guns blazing against the onslaught. But the carrier, wounded and weary, couldn't hold forever. In a final act of defiance, as Imperial cruisers closed in, Hayes ordered the unthinkable. The Invictus turned, its gargantuan engines flaring, and charged directly at the heart of the enemy fleet. It was a suicidal act, but in that moment, It was symbolic of humanity's unyielding spirit. They had struck from the shadows, adapted, defied expectations, and when backed into a corner, they would fight tooth and nail, dragging as many of their enemies as possible down with them. The Invictus rammed into an Imperial dreadnought, its shields shattering, hulk buckling, the colossal warships merging in a blinding flash. Shockwaves rippled through space, and then silence. The Invictus, the ship that had changed the fate of the galaxy, was gone, but its legacy would outlive it. Earth did not fall, crippled, devastated, but unbroken. The death throes of the Empire had battered their defenses, scorched their world, but they held. Relief fleets from other subject races, sensing weakness and smelling opportunity in the Empire's chaos, swooped in, not to enslave, but to bargain. On Earth, amidst the ruins of once thriving cities, a new era began. Hayes was gone, a hero enshrined in legend, and Dr. Sato disappeared amidst the swirl of recovery efforts, her brilliant, haunted mind perhaps seeking solace in peaceful obscurity. Humanity, bloodied but unyielding, started to rebuild. Their newfound place in the galaxy wasn't that of a superpower, but that of a survivor. They had faced an unimaginable foe, and though wounded, they had not broken. In boardrooms and diplomatic halls, humanity forged new alliances. Their voice carried the weight of their sacrifice, tempered with newfound understanding of how fleeting power could be. Technology flowed into Earth's battered shipyards, not as stolen scraps, but as blueprints shared in cautious cooperation. The legacy of the war stretched long. Some humans bore bitter scars, their hatred for their former oppressors burning bright and undying. But the new generation, born among rubble and defiant tales, also carried something else. Their eyes held the stars, not just with yearning, but with a hard-won wisdom. It was a time of mourning and of cautious rebirth. Schools reopened and playgrounds echoed once again with the laughter of children. But in their classrooms, the textbooks didn't just hold tales of scientific wonders, but also historical accounts of the cost of freedom, of the terrible power born from desperation. Humanity had been an underdog, underestimated and abused, but in that desperate struggle they had found something within themselves, resilience, cunning, and the sheer will to survive against all odds. The galaxy had learned a painful lesson: never corner a species with nothing left to lose. And with that lesson burned into the fabric of history, humanity stepped into a future that was uniquely, undeniably theirs to shape. Decades, perhaps centuries later, an explorer ship with a mixed-species crew drifted near the Arcturus system. It was a routine survey, one of many conducted in the wake of the Empire's collapse when the vast, neglected reaches of space opened up for exploration. A young human sensor officer frowned at her console. "Odd energy signature. Residual trace, faint, but unusual." The captain, a grizzled veteran with scales instead of skin, eyed the readings.
"Anything to worry about?"
"Hard to say, sir," she replied. "Doesn't match any known tech, but there's a sort of echo, like a scream cut short."
Curiosity piqued, he changed course. The ship sailed closer to the source of the readings, an uncharted asteroid belt. As they neared, the readings intensified, warping the fabric of local space-time.
"Sir, I think we found a pocket dimension," the officer said, a shiver running down her spine. She wasn't superstitious, but there was something chilling about the echoing energy signature. A decision flickered in the captain's eyes. They were explorers, after all.
"Set a probe array. Let's see what's hiding in there."
Hours later, the data was collected. An image formed on the main screen, and a stunned silence fell over the bridge. There, half buried in asteroid dust, was a colossal chunk of metal, unmistakably the mangled remains of a ship.
"My God," the captain whispered. "It's the Invictus."
Word spread, first through communications channels, then from star system to star system. The name whispered in reverent tones, relics of the war retrieved and enshrined on countless worlds. They would never know the full extent of what happened there, the desperate sacrifice made on that forgotten day. But the shattered remains of the Invictus served a purpose. It was a monument, a reminder that even in the darkest hour, courage was a weapon humanity wielded with devastating consequence.
a reminder that pushing any species too far could awaken a sleeping giant. This was the final legacy of Earth's secret supercarrier, not just a turning point in history, but a warning etched into the very fabric of the cosmos.